Leora stepped down from the silver spacecraft onto the glowing surface of Eldara's central plaza. The city stretched endlessly before her, with towers that shimmered in colors she had never seen, and streets that curved and twisted like the rings of a distant planet. She adjusted her cloak and straightened her shoulders, trying to carry herself with the grace of a princess, though the weight of every stair pressed heavily upon her. She could feel the whispers already. The scars on her face were the first thing anyone noticed. Jagged lines crossing her cheeks and forehead, traces of a childhood accident that had changed the course of her life. On her home planet, they had been a mark of survival, a symbol of endurance. But on Eldara, they were seen as flaws. Every noblewoman at the spaceport had looked at her with polite discomfort. Even those who smiled often glanced away quickly, as if the scars might somehow spread. "Your Highness!" a voice called, soft and formal, breaking through her thoughts. It was her attendant, a small alien creature named Ven, with bright orange fur and delicate antennae. "The festival committee awaits your arrival. They have prepared a special welcome." Leora nodded and followed Ven along the wide plaza, trying to focus on the beauty of Eldara rather than the judgment of its people. The festival was one of the grandest events in the galaxy, held once every 5 years to celebrate interstellar trade, art, and science. Creatures from dozens of worlds would be there, dressed in elaborate garments, exchanging stories, inventions, and art. As they approached the grand hall, she noticed the crowd. Eyes turned briefly toward her, then quickly shifted away. Leora could hear snippets of conversation. Her face, so strange. Why invite her at all? I don't understand why she's here. She felt a tight knot in her stomach, but she forced herself to keep walking. She had faced worse. In her youth, she had survived the crash that left her scars. She had negotiated peace treaties between warring factions on her planet. She had learned to speak 5 alien languages. Surely she could endure a few whispers. Inside the hall, the lights glimmered like liquid starlight. Floating orbs moved along the ceiling, casting soft light on the faces of the nobles and merchants gathered there. Leora took a deep breath and walked slowly among them. She bowed politely to those who acknowledged her, keeping her head high despite the cold glances. A young diplomat approached, smiling tightly. "Princess Leora, welcome. You honor us with your presence." Leora returned the bow, her voice calm.
"I am honored to be here. Eldara is beautiful."
The diplomat nodded and stepped away, his attention already caught by a more suitable guest, someone whose appearance fit the Eldaran ideal of beauty. Leora noticed the pattern quickly. Everyone was polite but distant, cautious in their interactions. They saw her title, not her character. She wandered toward the edge of the hall, where the windows overlooked the city gardens. The sight of greenery and alien flowers calmed her. Strange plants with luminous petals swayed gently under the artificial sky. It was here that she first saw him. A man, tall and striking, stood near the far corner, separate from the crowd. His eyes were dark and intelligent, and his expression was calm but curious. He did not look away, nor did he flinch when he noticed her scars. Instead, he seemed to study her, as though trying to understand the story behind them. Leora felt a strange mix of apprehension and relief. After all the avoidance and whispers, here was someone who looked at her like she mattered. His presence was quiet but commanding. She noticed the way he held himself, confident but not arrogant. His clothes were simple but well made, and there was an ease to his movements that spoke of someone who had traveled far and seen many worlds. The man finally spoke, in a voice that was calm and friendly. "I don't believe we've met. I'm Kale. I've traveled to more planets than I can count, and yet I find myself most curious about this one. And about you." Leora blinked, surprised. "Curious about me?" Kale nodded. "Your scars, they tell a story. Most would hide them, or let them define them. But I see that you carry them with strength. That is rare."
That is worth knowing.
For the first time since she had arrived, Leora felt a genuine smile tug at her lips. "I thank you. It is not often someone looks beyond appearances." They walked together to a balcony overlooking the city. Kayel pointed to the rivers of light that ran through Eldara's streets, explaining how the energy flows powered both the buildings and the transport systems. Leora listened intently, sharing her own experiences with energy conduits on her home planet. As they talked, she realized that this man did not see her as a princess to be judged, but as a person to be understood. Meanwhile, the other guests began to notice their interaction. Whispers spread quickly. Why is he speaking to her? Does he not see her scars? She is a princess. But still. Leora felt the familiar sting of isolation, but Kael's presence made it bearable. He asked questions about her world, about the challenges she had faced, and about the knowledge she had gained through experience. He spoke of alien cultures where marks like hers were symbols of honor, where strength was measured by deeds, not looks. Hours passed, and the festival continued around them. Performers from distant planets danced in swirling colors. Musicians played instruments that seemed to bend the air itself, and merchants displayed artifacts that shimmered with energy. But Leora felt that none of it mattered as much as the conversation she was having with Kael. Eventually, the crowd thinned, leaving the balcony quiet, except for the two of them. Leora felt a rare sense of freedom. No expectations, no judgments, only understanding. Kael gestured toward the stars above the city. "I've seen skies filled with more suns than you can count. And yet, even among billions of stars, some shine brighter than others. You are one of those stars, Leora." Her heart raced. She had never been called beautiful in such a way before, not for the symmetry of her face, not for the color of her eyes, but for her spirit, her courage, her being. I do not know what to say," she murmured, feeling the weight of years of isolation and judgment lift, just slightly. Kael smiled. "Then say nothing. Just be yourself. That is enough." For the first time in her life among strangers, Leora felt hope. The festival, the whispers, the judgment. None of it mattered if even one person could see her true self. And somehow, she had found that person in a crowded hall of glittering strangers. As the night deepened, Leora and Kael continued to talk, wandering through the gardens beneath the floating lights. They shared stories of distant planets, of narrow escapes, of friends lost and found. Each story revealed more about them, about who they were, beyond titles and appearances. By the end of the evening, Leora realized something remarkable. She no longer felt like an outsider. She still bore her scars, and some eyes still looked away, but she had discovered a connection that could not be broken by judgment or fear. And in that moment, she understood that the galaxy was vast, and among billions of beings, finding someone who could see you was more precious than any crown or title. She turned to Kael, ready to continue her story with him, knowing that the path ahead, no matter how uncertain, might finally feel like home. The morning sunlight streamed through the crystal windows of Eldara's palace, painting patterns on the floor like flowing water. Leora stood at the balcony, her thoughts still lingering on the night before. She had never experienced a conversation that felt so real, so deep. Even among her own people, she had never felt that kind of understanding. The scarred marks on her face, which had always been a source of shame, no longer seemed so heavy in her mind. Kael had promised to meet her again. She wondered what he would think of her in the light of day. Would he notice the imperfections that everyone else seemed obsessed with? Or had his admiration truly been genuine? Her stomach twisted with a mix of hope and nerves as she walked through the halls toward the city's central gardens, where Kael had said he would wait. When she arrived, he was already there, leaning casually against one of the tall, glowing pillars that lined the walkway. His dark hair caught the morning light, and his eyes held that same warm curiosity that had made her heart beat faster the night before. "You're..." Kael said, smiling. "Or perhaps I'm late." Leora shook her head, a small smile on her lips. I didn't want to miss this. Strange plants waved gently in the soft breeze, their leaves humming faintly, as if they were alive with their own thoughts. Leora shared stories of her childhood on her home planet, of fields of blue grass and skies filled with two suns. Kale listened intently, asking questions that showed he truly cared. Not once did he comment on her scars. Not once did he look away. I've seen many worlds, Kale said after a pause, and most creatures judge each other too quickly. They look at the surface and decide worth it. But the ones who survive, who make a difference, they are often the ones who bear scars. Leora's heart lifted. On my planet, scars were considered honor marks. But here, they are considered weaknesses. Kael looked at her thoughtfully. That says more about them than about you. Strength is not in perfect skin or flawless appearances. Strength is in the choices you make, the courage you show, and the kindness you give. You have all of that. For a moment, Leora felt tears prick her eyes. Not from sadness, but from relief. She had spent years hiding parts of herself, pretending to be unshakable, because the world around her valued only what could be seen at first glance. Here, in Kale's presence, she could be herself, fully herself. Their conversation was interrupted by a group of young nobles who had noticed them walking together. Their expressions were polite but forced, their whispers barely hidden. "Why is he speaking to her?" one murmured. "Does he not see the marks?" Leora stiffened, but Kale's hand brushed lightly against hers. "Ignore them," he said softly. "They don't understand, but that's their problem, not ours." They continued walking, exploring the gardens. Leora told Kale about her studies of alien technology, her fascination with energy conduits, and the way her people had developed methods to harness planetary power safely. Kale was fascinated, asking questions that showed genuine curiosity rather than simple politeness. Hours passed without notice. Birds with translucent feathers sang songs Leora had never heard, and the air smelled faintly of spices from a planet she could not name. Kale led her to a small fountain in the center of the garden, its water glowing with a soft golden hue. "Do you like it here?" Kale asked, watching the water ripple. "It is beautiful," Leora replied, her voice soft. "But beauty is not what makes it special. It is the life, the energy, the stories that exist here. People, even those who are difficult, hated, they all contribute to the world's rhythm." Kael nodded. "You see the world differently. You notice the patterns others miss. That is a gift." As they sat by the fountain, a small crowd began to gather at the edges of the garden. Eldara's nobles were curious, some even skeptical, of the unusual pairing. Leora could feel their eyes, judgmental and cautious. She had faced disdain before, but it was different this time. She felt protected by Kale's presence. Just then, an announcement echoed across the gardens. A contest of invention was about to begin, a tradition of the festival where individuals displayed their technological innovations to impress the judges. Leora had been trained in engineering from a young age and knew she could participate. Kale encouraged her to join, smiling warmly. "You should show them what you can do," he said, "not for approval, but to remind yourself of your own abilities." The thought of public judgment made her stomach twist. She had always been careful, always cautious, because mistakes could be cruelly criticized. But Kale's encouragement gave her courage. She nodded. When she entered the contest area, the room fell silent. The judges, the crowd, everyone stared at her with the same mixture of curiosity and doubt. Many whispered about her scars, others about her alien heritage. But Leora ignored them. She took a deep breath and began to demonstrate her invention, a device that could channel planetary energy safely into a city's power grid. Her hands moved confidently, her explanations clear and precise. The device hummed and glowed as she activated it, displaying a flawless performance. Kale watched from the sidelines, pride shining in his eyes. By the end, the room erupted in applause. Even the skeptics could not deny the brilliance of her work. Leora felt a rush of pride, not from the applause, but from the knowledge that she had shown her true abilities, unhidden and unapologetic. After the contest, Kael met her outside. "See?" he said, smiling. "They can try to judge, but intelligence and skill speak louder than appearances." Leora laughed softly. "Thank you for believing in me." Kyle's smile widened. It is easy to believe in someone who is brave enough to be themselves. The day continued with explorations of the city. Kyle showed her hidden libraries filled with maps of unexplored planets, museums that contained artifacts older than most civilizations, and quiet gardens where few visitors wandered. Each moment strengthened the connection between them. Leora found herself sharing stories she had never told anyone, fears she had buried, hopes she had kept secret. Kale listened without judgment, offering insight or simply a comforting presence. As evening approached, the city lights transformed Eldara into a landscape of glowing colors. The streets shimmered like rivers of stars, and Leora felt a sense of wonder she had not experienced since childhood. Kale led her to the highest tower, where they could see the entire city spread below. "I have traveled across galaxies," Kale said quietly. "I've seen wonders, creatures, planets that most would never believe exist. And yet, among all of it, moments like this are the rarest. A connection that feels real, that feels honest." Leora turned to him, her heart beating rapidly. "I have never felt such a connection, not with anyone." Kale reached out, his hand hovering near hers. "Then let us explore it. Together there's much to see, much to learn, and so many stories yet to be told." For the first time, Leora felt that she was not alone in the galaxy. The scars on her face, once a source of shame, now felt like a testament to survival, courage, and strength. And in Kale's eyes, they were not imperfections, but proof of a life lived fully, a life worth recognizing. As the night descended, Leora realized something profound. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders, challenges, and unknown dangers. But for the first time, she knew she had someone by her side who would see her not for her scars, her title, or her appearance, but for the person she truly was. They stayed on the tower, watching the city lights, talking quietly about planets they wanted to visit, experiments they wanted to try, and adventures they hoped to share. Every story strengthened their bond, and every laugh or thoughtful glance built trust. The festival would continue for days, and there would be challenges, judgments, and expectations. But Leora now knew she was capable of facing them, not alone, but with someone who valued her entirely, and that thought, more than any invention or title, filled her with hope and courage. The following morning, Eldara was alive with movement and sound. Traders from countless planets set up vibrant stalls, and performers practiced their dances in the open plazas. Leora walked through the festival with Kale by her side, feeling more confident than ever. Her invention had impressed the judges, and whispers of admiration now mixed with the earlier skepticism. For the first time, she sensed that some were beginning to see beyond her scars. Yet not everyone welcomed her presence. Some nobles still looked at her with thinly veiled disapproval. They whispered as she passed, criticizing her attire, her alien features, or the audacity of her participation in events they considered beneath a princess. Leora noticed it, but she kept her head high, remembering Kale's words. "Strength is in courage, kindness and skill, not in appearances." Kale smiled at her quietly. "Don't let them waste your energy," he said. "They will see your worth in time." Leora nodded. "I hope so. It is strange to be valued for what I can do, not for what I look like." Their path led them to a new part of the festival, a challenge of navigation and problem-solving. Contestants were given complex puzzles to test intelligence, strategy, and creativity. Leora's heart raced. This was an area where she excelled, yet the idea of public scrutiny made her uneasy. Kaol squeezed her hand lightly.
"I will be right here," he said. "You have everything you need." The contest began.
Leora studied the holographic displays and intricate devices laid out before the participants. Her mind worked quickly, analyzing patterns, predicting outcomes, and testing solutions. Kaol watched her from the sidelines, offering encouragement when needed, but never taking over. Hours passed, and the crowd grew. Eldara's citizens and visiting dignitaries alike gathered to watch. Some whispers remained, but many people were beginning to watch with genuine curiosity, eager to see how the princess with the scars would perform. Leora ignored the murmurs, focusing entirely on the challenge before her. Finally, she completed the final puzzle. The device she had designed activated smoothly, solving a problem that had stumped many other contestants. A soft glow spread across the mechanism, signaling success. The crowd erupted into applause. Even the most critical spectators could not deny her skill and intelligence. Leora felt a surge of pride, not from recognition, but from knowing she had relied on her own abilities. Kaol stepped forward, his smile wide and proud. "See?" he said softly. "They can try to judge, but your actions speak louder than their doubts." Leora laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Thank you, Kaol, for everything." Their celebration was interrupted when an alert echoed through the festival. One of the Skyway transport systems, experimental and untested, had malfunctioned. Floating platforms carrying citizens and visitors were stuck mid-air, some swinging dangerously. Panic began to ripple through the crowd. Without hesitation, Leora stepped forward. She had studied transportation systems extensively on her home planet, and she quickly assessed the situation. Kaol joined her, offering support and coordinating with the festival's safety personnel. Together, they devised a plan. Leora guided the engineers to stabilize the platforms, using her knowledge of energy conduits and planetary systems. Kaol ensured that the citizens remained calm and safe, directing those in danger to secure zones. The crowd watched in awe. The princess who had once been dismissed and avoided was now at the center of a crisis, using her intelligence and courage to save lives. Leora's scars, once seen as flaws, now symbolized resilience and determination. Hours passed, but finally, every platform was secured. The danger was over. Citizens cheered, and even the skeptical nobles approached with newfound respect. Leora felt exhausted but proud. She had not only proven her intelligence, but also her courage and ability to act under pressure. Kaol took her hand gently. "You did more than impress them," he said. "You saved lives. That is something no appearance can measure." Leora looked around at the crowd. Faces that had once judged her now looked on with admiration. Some even smiled openly, acknowledging her bravery. It was a feeling she had never experienced before. The warmth of genuine respect from those who had doubted her. Later, as the festival lights glowed against the darkening sky, Kaol led Leora to a quiet garden tucked away from the crowds. They sat on a low wall, watching the stars begin to appear above the city. "You have changed more than this festival," Kaol said quietly. "You've changed their perception. They will never see you the same way again." Leora shook her head. "It is not their perception I care for most. It is mine. I have learned to value myself, scars and all. That is the true strength, and the galaxy is full of challenges that will require this strength." They spoke of future plans, of exploring uncharted planets together, of learning from each new culture they encountered. Leora shared ideas for inventions that could help not only Eldara but distant worlds as well. Kaol listened, fascinated by her creativity and determination. As they walked back toward the festival, a group of children ran past, staring wide-eyed at Leora. One of them hesitated, then approached. "Princess?" "Can you teach me about your inventions?" the child asked shyly. Leora knelt, smiling warmly. "Of course. I will show you everything I know." The child's face lit up, and Leora realized something profound. Influence was not just about recognition or power. It was about inspiring others, showing that intelligence, courage, and resilience mattered more than appearances. Kale walked beside her, proud and quiet. He did not need to speak. His presence alone reminded her that she was valued for who she truly was. The evening ended with a ceremony honoring the festival's participants. Leora was called to the stage, not as a princess judged for her appearance, but as a hero who had demonstrated ingenuity and courage. The applause was loud, genuine, and heartfelt. Leora felt a warmth in her chest. For the first time, she truly belonged, not because of her title, but because of her actions, her mind, and her spirit. Kale joined her on stage, offering a hand that spoke of partnership and trust as they looked out over the crowd. Leora realized that the path ahead would still hold challenges. There would always be those who judged superficially, who misunderstood, who doubted her. But she now had something far more powerful than approval: self-respect, courage, and a companion who valued her completely. Together, they would face whatever the galaxy had to offer, and in that knowledge, Leora felt a freedom she had never known, a promise of adventures yet to come, and the unwavering certainty that scars did not define worth. They highlighted the journey, the survival, and the strength of a person who had endured and thrived. The festival lights slowly dimmed, and the city of Eldara settled into a calm glow. Leora stood atop the highest terrace of the palace, looking out over the city she had come to know and, in many ways, change. The events of the past days had transformed not only her reputation, but also her sense of self. Her scars, once a source of shame, now symbolized the challenges she had overcome and the strength she carried within her. Hale approached quietly, his footsteps soft against the polished stone. "It's quiet now," he said, standing beside her. "The city sleeps, and for the first time, you can see it without the noise of judgment." Leora turned to him, her face reflecting both fatigue and pride. "It has been overwhelming," she admitted, "but also enlightening. I never thought I would feel accepted for who I truly am, rather than how I appear." Kale smiled, his dark eyes warm and steady. "You've earned it, Leora, not by changing yourself, but by showing the world your strength, your intelligence, and your courage. That is the kind of value that cannot be ignored." They walked down the terrace steps together, the soft light of Eldara's lanterns guiding their path. As they moved through the quiet streets, Leora noticed the subtle shifts around her. Shopkeepers who had once avoided her now nodded politely. Citizens whispered words of respect rather than pity. Even some of the festival judges who had been skeptical at first offered approving glances. Leora realized that while the scars on her face had remained unchanged, people's perception of her had evolved, and in many ways, so had her own. They entered the palace courtyard, where a small group had gathered to thank the participants of the festival for their contributions. Leora felt a strange mix of pride and humility as she listened to the words of gratitude from the festival organizers. Her inventions had made the city safer, her strategies had inspired admiration, and her courage had left an impression on everyone who had witnessed it. Kale's hand brushed lightly against hers. "Shall we walk?" he asked, guiding her toward a quiet garden that overlooked the northern horizon. Leora nodded. "I want to remember this moment," she said softly. Not the applause, not the recognition, but the feeling of standing proud and knowing I did it for myself. They walked in silence for a few minutes, the soft rustle of alien foliage surrounding them. Leora paused at a small fountain, its water glowing gently. She knelt beside it, her reflection shimmering in the liquid. The scars on her face were clear, but they no longer felt like a burden. Instead, they were a reminder of her journey, of all she had endured, and of the choices that had brought her here. Kale joined her, sitting on the edge of the fountain. "You know," he said quietly, "most people never see themselves as you do now. They measure worth by what can be seen, not by what exists inside. But you see the truth of who you are, and that is rare." Leora smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression. "I have learned to value myself, not for approval, but for my own actions, thoughts, and heart. That makes all the difference." Kyle reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "Then let us take that strength and explore it further. There are galaxies beyond this one, filled with wonders and challenges. I want to face them with you." Leora looked into his eyes, seeing not only admiration, but also unwavering trust. "You would, journey with me?" she asked. "Even knowing my scars, my past, and everything that comes with me?" "I would, Kale replied firmly, "because you are not defined by scars, titles, or appearances. You are defined by your courage, your intelligence, and your heart. That is why I choose you, Leora." Her chest swelled with emotion. For so long she had been judged and dismissed. For so long she had felt isolated in a galaxy full of life. And yet now here was someone who saw her fully, without hesitation, without fear, without judgment. Leora stood, her reflection in the fountain catching the light. "Then I accept," she said softly. "Not because I need validation, but because I have found someone who sees me as I am." Kale smiled, lifting her hand to his lips in a gesture both gentle and respectful. Together they looked toward the horizon, where the city's lights met the darkening sky. Beyond the city lay countless stars, planets, and possibilities, and for the first time, Leora felt ready to face them all. The following days of the festival were filled with new experiences, but none of them overshadowed the bond between Leora and Kale. They explored secret libraries, shared ideas for innovations, and watched performances from distant worlds. Everywhere they went, Leora's presence inspired admiration, curiosity, and respect. Children asked her questions about her inventions, young inventors sought her guidance, and even those who had once doubted her began to see her value. Yet the greatest reward was not the recognition of others, but the quiet moments with Kale. They spoke of planets they wished to visit, of civilizations they hoped to learn from, and of challenges they might face together. Leora realized that while the galaxy was vast and unpredictable, she no longer felt small or insignificant. She had someone who believed in her, and that belief fortified her in ways she had never imagined. One evening, as the festival drew to a close, Leora and Kale stood on the terrace once more, looking at the horizon. The city below was bathed in soft golden light, and distant stars began to twinkle in the evening sky. "Do you think we'll ever find a place where we are truly understood?" Leora asked, her voice thoughtful. Kale turned to her, his expression calm and certain. "We already have. Understanding is not about a place. It is about connection, and we have that connection. Everywhere we go, as long as we face it together, we will be understood." Leora nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace.
"Then let's go," she said.
"Let's see the worlds beyond, learn from them, and show them the strength of courage, intelligence, and heart." Kale smiled. Together. As the festival ended and the city returned to its quiet rhythm, Leora and Kale prepared for their journey. Ships awaited, equipped with technology that would carry them to distant planets, through unknown galaxies, and into adventures yet to be imagined. Leora felt the familiar thrill of anticipation, the excitement of exploration, and the comfort of knowing she was not alone. Before leaving Eldara, Leora paused to look back at the city that had once been a place of judgment and whispers. Now, She saw it differently. She saw a place that had taught her resilience, that had allowed her to prove her worth, and that had shown her the importance of courage and self-belief. Her scars, which had caused so much doubt in others, had become symbols of survival, growth, and strength. Cale joined her, his hand warm in hers. "Ready?" he asked. Leora took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift and the promise of the future unfold. "Ready?" she said, her voice steady. "For everything?" Their ship rose into the sky, leaving Eldara behind, but carrying with it the lessons, memories, and connections they had forged. Stars stretched out before them, worlds waiting to be discovered, and challenges ready to be faced. And through it all, Leora knew one truth more clearly than ever. Her scars did not define her. Her courage, intelligence, and heart did. And with Cale by her side, there was no limit to what they could face together. As the stars enveloped them, Leora felt a sense of freedom she had never known. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries, challenges, and wonders, but she was no longer afraid. She had found acceptance, partnership, and purpose. The handsomest man had chosen her, not despite her scars, but because of the person she truly was. And so, together, they set off into the endless cosmos, ready to explore, learn, and thrive. Their journey had just begun, but Leora knew that whatever lay ahead, she would face it with courage, heart, and the unwavering belief that true worth comes from within. The galaxy awaited, and for the first time, Leora felt completely, brilliantly alive.